Andres Lorente, what a pleasure to see you at the popcorn counter.
James Ruzika, you look much better than you did last time. You looked undead last time.
Yeah, I have ditched the teeth, thank God.
Oh,
yeah, and
good.
it's too hot for a cloak now.
Awesome.
I'm enjoying this delicious popcorn, also realising that not only is popcorn the perfect film snack, it's also the perfectly named snack, isn't it, somehow?
Yes.
Like those 7 letters tell you, kind of like how it's made, all of the ingredients.
Yep.
And even kind of gives you a sensation of sort of like how crispy it will be when you bite into it. Like the popcorn is like the perfect name for this stuff, which is popcorn.
And the butter association is automatically in there. Like it doesn't say butter in the name, but you know there's butter or artificial butter on there.
Artificial butter, yes, obviously.
That's for the non-Vikings, because I mean there's milk and butter, and the Vikings they don't like the plant-based butters. Let's say that they can still digest the milk.
They can still digest lactose, yeah. So we were saying last week, so DreamWorks spent a lot of money. I was unable to find out how much money, but a lot of money on the rights to How to Train Your Dragon. Broadly speaking, just to get the name.
Yeah.
So the characters have the same names, but only a few of the characters. The story is completely different to the book, but the name, that title, is what you paid for. If I ever have any advice for aspiring screenwriters, probably the best single bit of advice I've got is make sure that you put 50 or 60% of your mental effort into the title, because I think that effort will pay off. If you can have a great title, a really, really good title will do 50 or 60% of the work for you. Sometimes people buy things purely based on the strength of the title. I mean, this is what happened with Blade Runner, wasn't it? Because that was originally called, was it Dangerous Days, I think the script was originally called. And then William Burroughs had a completely different project. It was he'd written a treatment which was based on a novel called, I think, The Blade Runner. And the novel was about like a future post-apocalyptic scenario where the characters in the book were smuggling medical equipment.
Ooh.
And so they were smuggling scalpels and things like that. So a scalpel smuggler was called a Blade Runner. And so he wrote a treatment, I think, for a film script based on the book The Blade Runners, and he called his treatment Blade Runner with a space. And I think Ridley Scott liked the title so much they bought the property off William Burroughs just to use the name. Yes. Everything else was thrown away, but they kept the name. And then, that name, which I think is a great name, it's utterly devoid of any context or information. There's no meaning in there at all, but it somehow feels elusively, somehow tangentially close enough.
Like
to
he's
the tone
he's riding a thin line or something like that. He's running.
Yep.
Huh.
And so it's kind of like the idea of so like he's kind of going at speed, and it's sort of dangerous, and there's a weapon involved, and it has all these kind of little elements of meaning folded in. And yet, it doesn't really contain any information in that title, but it is the right title for the film.
I do like terse titles, succinct titles. So a lot of my favorite films just have one word. I think of Diva or Delicatessen.
Right.
Or ones that maybe I don't like as much but are effective. Psycho and Jaws.
Yeah, wow. 4 letters. And you get a lot of value out of those 4 letters.
Yeah. Or 8.5. I love that title, and that's not even 4 letters. It's a number and a fraction, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think that I was disproved recently because my wife was watching a film called Plane.
And tell me, what is that film about?
It's about a plane, like an airplane.
So it's not about a flat 2-dimensional surface which extends to infinity in all directions.
That would be spelled differently, but it would sound exactly the same. Yeah, and it was terrible. I didn't watch all of it, but
what, the title or the film?
The title's bad. And that sort of counters my theory that maybe one-word titles are really good. But Plane is not a good title. But now I'm going to give you a great title.
Oh, yep.
Snakes on a Plane. Better title, right?
See, that I've got I have categories of great film titles, and that comes in the category where the title is the pitch of the film.
It's the picture.
The title tells you everything you need to understand what you're getting.
And it's more interesting than People on a Plane or Gerard Butler on a Plane, which is the other Plane film. So sometimes just a tweak to maybe a simpler title might make it better. But Plane is not good, but I think I like some of the other ones that I had mentioned. I had a number of others, too, that fit that. Like I like sometimes the name of a person, Leolo. It's one of my favorite films, the Quebec film. Bliss, Matador, Casablanca.
Oh, it is all one word, isn't it?
Yeah, Stagecoach, Chinatown, which is not really has very little to do with Chinatown. But so I was just looking at titles of films that I like, and a lot of them are, I think the ones that just evoke something with one word are really effective.
Aliens is the one that comes to mind for me, where it's just like a single word, but it contains, I think that is a genius title because it contains so much information. You know from the title that it is a sequel to that very well-known film from a few years previously, and you also know that film from a few years previously is going to bring back that alien, but there's more of them. It tells you so much information in just sort of 6 letters. You can see that and gather so much about what you're paying your money for. I made a little list of some of my favourites where the title is the pitch, and top is Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Because it's like a clever little joke, and yet also it explains basically the whole plot of the film in 4 words. The plot is literally that you have to get back to the future. And so implicit in this is the knowledge that you must have travelled to the past and you are attempting to return.
Yeah.
It's very, very clever. Zootopia, I don't know whether you've seen that, which is one of the Disney animations from about 10 years ago. It's outstanding. There's a sequel coming out, I think Christmas this year, which I'm really looking forward to. I must have bored you about Zootopia many times. It's like Raymond Chandler for 10-year-olds. It's kind of its noir detective picture, but with animals. It's very clever, but it's all set in this sort of idealized utopian city where a whole bunch of different animals live and they all get on and they have they have their own lives, but they're intertwined with each other. So it is Thomas More's Utopia retold with animals. Zootopia, what a brilliant way to summarize that. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really clever. Sometimes the title is enormously better than the film.
Yes.
Snakes on a Plane is one of those. The other one that occurred to me, which we watched for the pod, Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
Which is, because that's one of those titles, but there you go. That tells you everything you need to know about the film. You can tell from those 2 words. You can see the whole film in your mind's eye.
I was so excited
the film
that film based on the title.
The film that you see in your mind's eye is vastly better than the film that they made. There's one other one where which I think is so clever, which I've never seen, and I'm not sure. Maybe you can tell me whether it's worth taking the time to see it. But this is another film where it explains the whole pitch for the entire movie in the title, and it's only 2 words. It is Shanghai Noon.
Oh, yeah.
Where, it's like a retelling of High Noon.
High Noon, yeah.
But there's a Chinese guy in it.
Yep, I think I have seen it.
I see the whole thing now. Oh, yeah, right, it's going to be high Noon, but there's going to be some martial arts stuff in, and it's going to be a bit of kind of cross-cultural misunderstanding. You can see the whole thing from the title. It's just genius. Fantastic.
It was good, too, I remember, yes.
It's Owen Wilson, isn't it? Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan.
Yes. And High Noon is good, too. I mean, obviously a great film, too. There are a lot of films that come with these almost prepackaged titles. They're just phrases that we use regularly, or that sort of just, they get recycled. They carry a certain weight. Like when I think of a couple scripts that I've written, some of the parts, I feel like it's a pretty good title, and it brings something to it without telling too much. I wrote another one called Red Herring, which again, I think it has information in the title, but you don't know where it's going exactly. So I like titles like that also. I think my favorite project title that I ever wrote, I wrote
I must have talked to you about this before. A script about a spy. He's like a secret agent, and his department gets defunded, so he has to do his whole mission on a budget of zero. So he can only do the mission by kind of begging and borrowing and staying in youth hostels and things like that. And it's called Free Agent.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And I was, and a lot of people kind of told me, oh, that's one of those movies where you came up with a title and then you wrote the story to fit it. And it was the other way around. I came up with the idea, wrote the story, and then quite late on in the day I realized, God, this is what this should be called.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never beaten that. I'm not claiming that's the greatest title of all time, but I was pleased for that.
But yeah, or when we wrote Pub Guide, I remember thinking, okay, it's a serviceable title, but then I think we showed it to Kelly and he said, great title. Because you do. It's a film where you get double entendre, basically. If you get a little bit of value out of your title that you weren't expecting, I think that's kind of nice. So I do like titles like that, too. I'm generally against long titles. And sometimes books make their, like remakes or adaptations of books sometimes make this mistake. Like I love the film Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Right.
It's way too kind of literary, I think, for a film, basically. But I like that title, but it's a little long. And then not long ago, we watched the Nick Cage feature, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I thought was a ridiculous title. It's kind of a ridiculous film, but it's either really good or really bad, I think, as a title. But I wonder if it really takes... if it takes a sort of obviously it's an homage to Unbearable Lightness because it's unbearable weight, but I wonder if that's like a filmmaker's thing, or does anyone really recognize that as a nod to the Milan Kundera book?
You have to be careful not to cheese off the guy who puts the letters on the awning of the cinema. Yeah, that guy loves Jaws and he hates... was it like the assassination of Jesse James by the coward?
Or he loves his new digital screen, which you can just type it in instead of working on the marquee in the old days. Another film I would mention is How I Learned to Love the Bomb, which is probably the more accurate title for Dr. Strangelove. Yeah. Because Dr. Strangelove is not a big character in that film, but it's a great... Dr. Strangelove is a better title, right? I mean, it sort of grabs your attention. You think, oh, wow, this is going to be kind of a weird film. But I think the film that actually, the title that actually reflects the film a little bit better might be How I Learned to Love the Bomb. Neither one of those titles really tells you a whole lot about the film, but they're both kind of good titles. One's too wordy, one is kind of too imaginative. It really does not give you any idea what the film's about.
I mean, sometimes it's enough just to be, evocative and interesting without necessarily really giving you any information about the film. I'm thinking, we talked about Blade Runner, but things like A Clockwork Orange. Yeah. That's kind of like a meaningless phrase, and yet somehow it sticks in the brain, doesn't it? Yeah. Or Apocalypse Now. Yeah. Again, which it doesn't explain that it's a Vietnam movie. It doesn't really explain that it's a war movie. Maybe you go in there expecting some kind of world-ending chaos, and that's certainly what you get. But it doesn't. It's more about atmosphere and tone than it is the story. Yeah. Rebel Without a Cause, I think, is kind of good there, isn't it? Because I mean, that's memorable and it's an interesting idea, but it doesn't really entirely. It's about the theme rather than the letter of the story. Yeah. Land and Freedom actually is one that's so we watched that quite recently, and and the film really is all about land and freedom, but those are two very abstract concepts to put on a poster. Yeah. You don't come away with like an image. It doesn't make a promise of the kind of film that it will be. Land and Freedom could be a documentary about the legal process of selling farms or something like that. I mean, that doesn't really tell you anything.
I hear you. Yeah, but Kess, another film, which just is a character's name, I guess, right? It's a character's name of a bird who's really, again, is that the central character? Not really. It's the boy, right?
But I suppose, but the bird is the catalyst. Yeah. For his story.
So, like, you think of one-word names for films, or if they're just it's the name of a person. Sometimes that doesn't give you a whole lot of information, unless it's Churchill, right? I mean, you gotta. That's about Winston Churchill. Norma Ray was a film, right? I mean, just these titles that are just someone's name. It's usually a biopic, I suppose.
But who knew who Erin Brockovich was before they made a movie about her? Yeah. So you kind of, I think that title sort of works, but it also, effectively doesn't explain to you what you'll get when you buy your ticket, does it? It's only really useful after the fact. And I don't know whether that was always the working title for that film. It's a great, memorable performance by Julia Roberts. And once you've seen it, you always remember who Erin Brockovich is. But before you've gone into the movie to see it, there's very little for you to get your hooks into there. I mean, there are kind of bad names where, I think names where people are more proud of them than they probably deserve to be. Like Dune is one of my least favourite names. Also one of my least favourite films as well. But I feel like it evokes so very, very little. I mean, even having watched the film, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, right. Dune is the name of the planet, but isn't the planet also called Arrakis? So is Dune is that just the physical features of the planet? But is it just one dune? Is it one important dune? Or is it like a bunch of dunes? Are we focusing on one of many dunes here? It's, I just feels like it's a really dull, uninteresting title for a broadly dull, uninteresting film. But
it's sort of banking on the recognizability of the book, right? Like it's trying to work off of that book, trying to attract those fans automatically to the film version of it.
But it's amazing that the book was successful with a name like that, frankly, because there's not much for you to kind of get hold of there. Even we watched this for the pod a couple of years ago. Do you remember RRR?
Oh, I do. Yes.
And I was explaining to somebody fairly recently how incredible that film is. I think it's unbelievable, amazing film. But the title tells you absolutely nothing about it, to the extent that I don't think even the people making the film really could figure out why the film should be called RRR or what it has to do with anything that happens on screen.
Yeah. Well, at the end, don't they tell you what the R's are? Is it rebellion and revolution and something?
But it's like it's also the first initial of the two stars and the director as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little bit like it'd be like George Lucas making a new Star Wars film and calling it GLSW.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, okay, yeah. What's that mean then? I don't get it. So yeah, it's I think it's a disastrous title for an incredible film.
Yeah. Oh, it's not easy. I think that the goal is to evoke something, right? Like to make someone curious about a film, but not to give away the whole film. So Snakes on a Plane, I think because they kind of want to give away the whole film, that makes a great title, right? But it really does tell you the whole film, as you said earlier. I think, we could try and come up with another name for Snakes on a Plane, like Serpents in the Air.
Reptiles on an amphibious landing craft.
Perfect. So something like that, I think it's more evocative. It gets you in the general direction, but maybe doesn't give too much away. So I think there is a fine balance between that. And I'm sure, people are workshopping this stuff, and I'm sure that marketing departments are very focused on titles, and publicists, when they're working with filmmakers, probably early on, they start thinking about it. So yes, what did we say? We said RRR might have been pasted onto the film towards the end of the process, or Blade Runner was really a title without a film in its earliest incarnation. So when do you start thinking about it? Probably before you've obviously started writing a script if you're a writer, but sort of the early goings, you're already thinking about a title, or you might be getting into trouble if you still don't have a title.
But then sometimes you have to find it by writing it, don't you? You have an idea and you need to kind of explore it. I wonder whether coming up with a title first doesn't always get you the best story, because it's like you've already figured out what the destination is. Sometimes you need to sort of make the journey, I think, and sort of realize what it's about or who it's about. Or so I don't know. Maybe coming up with a title first isn't always the right answer, but spending a lot of time thinking about it definitely is. I don't know whether it's kind of just becoming a little bit more mature, or because I have very little brain. But I go to the movies these days and I see 5 trailers, and I come out and I ask whoever I'm with, what were the trailers again? Maybe I can remember 1 or I can remember 2.
Yeah.
And I think probably the best title is the one where it remains in your head 2 hours after you watch the trailer at the beginning of the film that you actually paid to go and see.
Yeah.
That's when you've got a winner. And something like Jaws or Aliens. Superman, which we saw the trailer for the other day. That will leave the cinema with me. There will be you get your real value out of a good title because it has that staying power.
Yeah, and some titles, when it's part of a a long-running property, you get the number 2, right? Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4. Superman is what? Is there a number after this one?
I think this is back to basics. I think they're saying
a reboot.
They are even using the Christopher Reeve Superman music. So I think they are implying, Here we go, a reset. We're just calling this movie Superman.
Yeah,
I think so.
So all of those films, they don't have any choice really. They don't have to even come up with a title because it's already there. The property's there. It's established, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you miss out on some of the fun of giving something a name.
When we made Waiting. So that, and we kind of thought for a long time about the title. We had like a list of 60 or 80 different titles and really thought about it. And, on reflection, I think we probably chose the wrong one, not least because there are several other films also called Waiting. There is this interesting copyright curio that titles are considered fair game. So I don't think anyone can tell you stole my title.
Yeah.
Because titles are so small, so short, they can be so generic that it's difficult to claim that they are your unique property or your unique work.
Yeah.
So, it's okay to use the same title as another project from the point of view of the Copyright Office. It's not okay from the point of view of trying to stay in people's brains. And Waiting, I think it's a little bit too generic and not quite descriptive enough. We go back again now and I think, I should have called it something else. I don't know what, though. I've probably got that list of 70 or 80 names somewhere in a booklet.
I thought it was a good title. I thought it worked well.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're doing right now. We're just sitting here waiting for
Yeah, you're right.
Films
Could be the name of this popcorn counter. You're goddamn right. Yeah, exactly.
It's the existential bargain. It's just waiting. That's what we're supposed to do. Just wait.
I tell you what, we are waiting to see Megan 2.0. And the thing that I find very confusing about that is I keep calling it Megan 3 because the E in Megan has been flipped round.
That's right.
So that it's spelled M3GAN. Like trying to, oh shit, have we missed a sequel?
Yeah.
Is this now Megan 3? Is this Megan 3 2? Perhaps this is Megan 6 we're going to watch.
Oh my God.
Maybe there are 5 other movies that I need to catch up on first.
Clearly multiplying at the least, right?
I think they need a clip around the ear is what they need. Right, let's go and watch some robots.
Yeah, let's do it. Robots. Robot dreams.
Robot dreams, now you're talking.
Let's do that again.